Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
I'm Fiorella.
And Johnny Sue is on those ones and twos.
You hit your line well, fam. You always do. Impeccable. Impeccable deliverance.
Thank you. You see, fam? See fams out there, only fams? she's coming around. She's liking the first line and whatnot. It's a big responsibility coming out and starting the show and saying, "Welcome back to the Convo Couch." Sometimes you can go too high. Sometimes you can go too low.
And whatnot.
And whatnot. Making fun? Okay, that's it. Johnny Sue spinning on those ones and twos as always. Fam, got a great show today. A lot of things to talk about. I do have a little bit of a big section today, but I was going to sleep excited about doing the show today because I love talking elections. And we had this hearing while we have the little timeout, the little pause with Maricopa because we have actually the stadium which they were using, the Veterans Memorial Stadium, is being used for high school graduations.
Mm-hmm.
So there are high school kids that finally get to walk. They didn't get to walk last year. I hope they let them walk this year. Maybe they'll do a double walk.
They're walking. They
should walk. And we talked about the whole mental obstruction that could be for these kids that, waited for years to just graduate, to go to prom, to go be able to walk, and they didn't get a chance to do it, and how that mentally affected them, right? So hopefully they get a little love, a little time, and there's a little pause in that Memorial Stadium while they're doing that, and then they will resume the audit. However, they had a hearing. They invited the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors to come. Karen Pham, the Senate, wrote a little a 3-issue thing. She pointed out 3 or 4 issues that they were experienced with the audit, and she invited the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors to come to the hearing to maybe give their perspective, give answers. Pham, would you believe they didn't show?
No, yeah. I mean, yeah.
You knew they weren't going to show.
Yeah.
Instead, they had their own press conference, and I watched most of it. I would try to highlight some things, but it was really just a bunch of garbage. It's like a bunch of babies just crying and saying, no, stop this, stop that, don't do this. They don't give reasons why. They don't give explanations why we should stop. They're just kicking, screaming, crying like a bunch of babies. And there's some Republicans involved, too, as well, in the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. And then we have the actual Senate, who was producing this hearing, talking about this hearing. And fam, I the first clip right off the bat, I want to make this clear because I still look at that Arizona audit chat on Telegram. Donald Trump is not coming back. This audit is not about Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not trust the plan. He's going to come back and he's going to be back in office. This is not a domino to fall. However, it is kind of channeling a lot of other people in other states, like Representative Vernon Jones in Georgia this morning called for a full forensic audit, and they're having the same thing. We already had audits. No, you had a recount. We didn't have an audit. We want a forensic audit, and we want to do it so we fix our elections moving forward.
Right.
Spoke to an official that was in Arizona the other day. He goes, I got to tip my hat to a lot of these Republicans, and this person was a leftist. He goes, a lot of progressives, this shit would happen to them. They would cry, scream, and then go back to doing what they normally did. The Republicans in this particular state are like, oh, hell no. We're going to get to the bottom of this. It's not about changing the results. It's not retroactive. It's about changing the elections for the future to make sure it never happens again. And that's why this was exciting to me.
100%.
Yeah. You agree?
I do.
All right. So let's go into, this is the first part, this little quick 20 seconds. Here's Karen Pham explaining in the beginning of a hearing what this is about, this audit.
Audit in particular, as many may or may not know, this has nothing to do with overturning the election or decertifying electors or anything else. It never has been about that. What this is about is the Senate, the Arizona Senate. We are in charge of creating, passing laws, and ensuring that elections are done properly, accurately, safely, with full election integrity.
Plain and simple. She talked about making new laws. And when we talked to Mark Fincham, Mark Fincham says, I got to see what comes out of this audit before we really concentrate on what new laws we're going to have moving forward. The Democrats don't want this done, or the establishment, I should say. I shouldn't say the Democrats, but the establishment doesn't want this done because they want to leave the elections the way it is. Even Republicans, establishment Republicans, there's a lot of talk about Mitch McConnell's race when in the ES&S counties, he got a lot of favorable numbers for him right there. ES&S, as we know, had a lot of connections to a lot of establishment Republicans back in the days. So I think they want to leave the system in play. Like people like Mitch McConnell, people like Lindsey Graham, Republicans like that, establishment candidates on the left and the right. They want to leave everything in play, fam, so they can use it to their advantage.
Yeah, that's what these people who are, calling this audit like, oh, you're pro-Trump or oh, you're a stop the steal person. It's like, listen, this is like both a bipartisan practice here. Like This is both parties as the establishment manipulating who gets into power. And this is why you don't have people who represent you. This is why we can't even demand humanity from Israel. This is why we fund the healthcare of Israelis before they fund yours.
Yeah.
This is why. Because you don't have fucking representation. And these idiots over here denouncing this audit are completely just engulfed in the ideology aspect of it, because if it was a progressive, they'd be for it. And that's what it is. They don't know how to take out their ideological preference and just move forward with, okay, how can we use this to benefit future elections, including those of the progressives we want to elect, the 100 more members of the squad that we think are going to save us. It's like, why do you think Charles Booker lost his election? Like, come on, guys.
Yeah. Charles Booker should have been the one running against Mitch McConnell and could have easily beat him. Charles Booker was one of my favorites out of all these new progressives running. I really thought he was very nuanced. He had he can speak to anybody. He could go into crowds of Republicans and speak to them. He didn't have the oh my God factor. And it's unfortunate because what happened in his election, I'm pretty sure there was some fugazi shit going on.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what we have to do. Now, when Representative Vernon Jones this morning talked about he wants a full forensic audit, from what he's seeing in Arizona, there's a lot of things that we have to look at, a lot of questions we need to answer. And he also said it was about fixing the integrity moving forward. What do people hit him with on his Twitter? You already had audits. You already had 2-3 audits. You already had audits. Same thing in Arizona. We saw the Daily News go in there, right?
Yep.
They already had 3 audits, but okay, so they're going to have an audit next to a carnival. Here is when CEO of Cyber Ninjas, which was the low-hanging fruit, because that's what's great about this hearing today. We have one of the other contractors there from a company called Cipher and a man named Ben Cotton, your favorite last name, which we'll talk about him too as well, who hasn't got attacked.
No relation to Tom Cotton.
No relation to Tom Cotton. But this is the CEO of Cyber Ninjas talking about audits. Johnny, it's going to go from 210 to 306, less than a minute.
Help me understand how this audit is different than some of the other audits that have been done.
Sure. So the other audits primarily focused on making sure that the version of software that was expected to be running on the machines, whether that's the tabulators or the EMS or so forth, was in fact the version that was in use. They also did, they ran some off-the-shelf software to detect any malware that's on the machines, and they ran logic and accuracy testing, which involves taking about 100 sample ballots, run it through the system, and making sure that for those sample ballots, they're counting. But at no point in any of those audits did they actually take a look at actual ballots and run those ballots through the system or do actual counting of it to validate the results. They were all focused on whether it was the right type or whether the right version of the software. Our audit is focused on specifically the results. Are the results exactly as they came through? Are they the way they were cast? And does it go all the way through the system that way?
There you go. That's good. Fam, I had to have him on record saying, at no time did those audits, did they actually run the actual ballots that were counted in that audit. So when you have donkeys going, oh, we already had 2-3 audits on it.
Yeah,
No.
they don't know what an audit is. And even when you tell them, they're like, you're just lying. It's like, nope, yeah, that's not a real audit. Thank you.
And that's something we talked about. We actually had the honor, I don't know what to say, or the joy of sitting down with Uncle Ronnie Lutters and Cousin Ray on their show. And Uncle Ron was actually an auditor of the state for many years. And that's the thing. He said, this is not an audit. America, you do not get audits, real audits on your elections. Plain and simple. So when they go in here to do this so they can fix future
news to a lot of
election,
people.
Yeah, they think, fam, well, didn't we already, even when I talked to Lee Camp, didn't they already have 2 audits? I'm like, no, Lee, they didn't have 2 audits. No. People just say it, the mainstream media says it, and they keep echoing it and repeating it.
And what irks me is that the progressive movement is so critical on what the mainstream media says, but when it comes to elections, they buy that. They buy that. When it comes to COVID, they buy that. So it's like, why do you make mental gymnastics when it comes to things? Is it the weight of the fact that a lot of right-wingers are the ones calling it out? And it's like, conspiracy theories were pushed like by leftists, supposedly, a long time ago. Not even that long ago, before 9/11. Conspiracy theories were led by the left. It was like what the commies did. Ooh, a bunch of commie conspiracy theories. Suddenly, it's the right-wingers that are the conspiracy theorists. And it's like, Doesn't that make you think how they manipulate all of this information just to divide us?
Yeah, yeah. I think that, sometimes I think this is all a big act to keep us separated, and that's why they're showing you some of the behind the curtain
Right.
look at elections and stuff. We never have audits. We should get audits. Why not check the homework? It should be mandatory. Like we said, this particular audit should be mandatory for every single election in every single county, period, point blank, on TV, cameras, the whole 9 yards. Now, let's talk about some of the problems really quick, because there's 4 problems that were pointed out. Number one, this is Ken Bennett talking about problem number 1, the lack of chain of custody. We've said this before. Now you got Katie Hobbs and all these other people. We're concerned about the chain of custody now
Yeah.
or whatnot all of a sudden.
Sure.
Okay, so this is 541 to 854, Johnny. This is Ken Bennett talking about the lack of chain of custody, and I want you to pay attention to what's said, because this is a serious, serious problem.
On the 22nd, we received 46 pallets of the ballots. We did have some minor issues that we worked through together on that day. We had, for example, 26 boxes that were mismarked on the manifests, but we corrected those as we ran into them. Mr. Jarrett and I personally inspected all 46 pallets and all 1,681 boxes. We found the 26 mismarked ballots and corrected those on the manifest. We found 8 boxes that were on the ballots but not listed on manifests. 1 on ballot 12, 4 on ballot 22, 2 on 38, and 1 on 41. Just to kind of give you the level of detail that he and I were kind of working through on that day. We did find a couple of boxes that were listed on the manifests but not on the ballot. That was on ballot 40, and we determined that they had been combined with 2 of the other boxes that were listed on the ballot. And then we found 3 boxes listed as being on ballot 43, but they were actually on ballot 45. So we worked through all of those issues. Mr. Jarrett was very professional, and the other county staff that were with him, and we worked through all those issues. I think that's, as I've read your letter, Madam President, I think perhaps the county misinterpreted the chain of custody question that we were asking, which I've been asking for weeks myself, and that is the chain of custody between the election in November and when the ballots were delivered to us on the 21st and 22nd of April. The link in that chain that occurred on those 2 days in April that delivered the ballots to me as your representative and to the Coliseum, that link is very secure, and we understand it correctly. We both agreed, as I said, on 1,681 boxes of ballots, on 46 ballots, and but the question we had that we still haven't received as far as chain of custody is the documentation of the chain of custody between when the ballots or boxes in the ballots, boxes with ballots in them, started to be filed away in their warehouse between the election and April 22nd is kind of the questions that we still haven't seen any chain of custody documentation. There was a pretty famous tweet with a picture of 8 or 10 pallets that seemed to be loaded in the back of a truck that was tweeted out shortly after I think the court decided that your subpoenas were legitimate. And it seemed to be tweeted out by the chairman of the Board of Supervisors saying that we have these ballots ready to deliver.
851.
We would have liked to and still would like to see the chain of custody documents between November and April to see if that type of an event is on those chain of custody documents. But it's the chain of custody between November and April that we haven't received.
Just to that point, Madam.
So this is very big, fam. The manifest, the chain of custody, everything has to be documented, right? And you heard Katie Hobbs say, well, we're worried about the chain of custody. That's why the Department of Defense has to come in, or the DHS Justice Department has to come in and take everything because they're breaking the chain of custody, whatnot. But that's what we've been seeing since the get-go, and they've been pointing this out. Now, I brought this up in Title 16 in the Arizona laws, whatnot, because it's been referred to. There's so much information in this hearing, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a chance to go back, I had to try to figure out what to put in and what I couldn't put in. But this is coming from Title 16, which was pretty much their rules and their laws when it comes to Arizona. And I'm going to read it. And this is Section 16608, Delivery of Ballots Electronic Voting System. Johnny, if we can put this up real quick. After the close of the polls and after the compliance with Section 1602, the members of the election board shall prepare a report in duplicate of number of voters who have voted and is indicated in the poll list, and place this report in the ballot box or metal container in which the voter ballots have been placed, which thereupon shall be sealed with a number sealed and delivered promptly to 2 members of the election board of different political parties to the central counting place or other receiving stations designated by the Board of Supervisors or officer in charge of election, which shall not be more than 50 miles from the polling place from which the ballots are delivered. This person in charge of receiving ballots shall give the numbered receipt, acknowledging receipt of such ballots in the person in charge who delivers such ballots. It's got to be airtight, fam. The receipts need to match. Everything has to be on point. And it wasn't. It was all over the place. Here's Ken Bennett once again talking about the duplicate process, because this is important, fam. If a ballot is soiled or coffee stained or wrinkled and can't go through the machine, they have to make a duplicate ballot. But to do that duplicate ballot, they have to make sure those 2 ballots are together. For the audit process, then they have a security code number on it. That security code has to be airtight. None of this is happening, fam, and they show this as they go along. Here is Ken Bennett once again. This is 2731 to 2850, just a minute and 20 seconds of him talking about the duplicate process and how it was out of whack.
Is there, if Maricopa County was willing to help us, is there any chance that they would have something that would provide us that information? I mean, I don't understand how it is. We know whether there's the proper number of duplicate ballots. If there's not enough, too many, there's got to be some way. Certainly the board of supervisors must have some way of verifying that. What would that be that we could ask them for if they would be willing to?
Well, I will send a question over to that effect to Maricopa County. On several occasions, Maricopa County has made it clear to me verbally and by email that they will not interact directly with the auditors, which I feel is very unfortunate, that the auditors can't pose these questions directly to the county. So as the liaison, I will understand and encapsulate these in a question, and I'll send them over to the county probably in the next few days as we begin to resume the counting. But this is one of the questions related to duplicate ballots that we just discovered a few days ago, and we're struggling as to how we're going to be able to match the originals to the duplicates if the originals don't have the same serial number as required by 16621 as the duplicate ballot does.
Right there. So, and I put this down right here. This is 16621. You look at the last sentence of it right here. All duplicate ballots created pursuant to the subsection shall be clearly labeled duplicate and shall bear a serial number that shall be recorded on the damaged or defective ballot. Now, if you don't have this in order, fam, and you don't have this going on, if you don't have the proper procedures, you can just flood a bunch of duplicate ballots that aren't marked properly. And that's the thing they're talking about. And the next picture, I have Doug Logan over here just showing, like, look at these sheets. They're so out of whack. Nothing. These are the receipts for the boxes, right? They're saying they're not matching. They're not having the numbers. The duplicates aren't matching. The chain of custody that the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors tried to, I don't want to say upheld because they didn't hold it, is out of whack. The chain of custody is crazy right now. And what did I tell you before, fam? They're gonna plead negligence, ignorance, because you can't go to jail for fraud for negligence. Oh my God, my bad, we screwed up. You know, it was such a crazy election this time. We didn't have all our ducks in order. We'll get it right next time. You can't send anybody to jail for that. And that's what they're gonna hide behind. But once again, Arizona law, moving forward, they're putting this all out in the open. So look, we have justification to show you that this manifest and these receipts and these duplicate ballots have to be marked right. If they're not marked right, we're throwing them out next time. You're not getting them through. You know what I'm saying? Or fire people, hire people. You know what I'm saying? In Georgia, there is a lot of lawsuits that are coming out. They didn't have the same process. This is going to save them from when they do have lawsuits, when their election integrity bill comes out, they're going to already have the answers, and the people in the public are going to be like, oh, no, they have the right to do this. They showed on the last election they didn't have the proper duplicate ballot chain of custody in order, and we're not going to let that happen again because we don't know if they're legit votes or not. You need the old ballot with the new ballot, and they've left them in a position where they can't do that. A few other things pointed out by Ken Bennett and the auditors in conclusion to the chain of custody. Proper tape and seals were not on boxes. Johnny can tell you about that thing. You know, when we saw the tape over in California and stuff like that, we're like, this is a piece of Scotch tape. You're supposed to have the seal tape that if you break it, somebody knows. They didn't have that. They also showed an example of a chain of custody that should be upheld by the way the audit is going, and how 8 people inside that audit building right now, fam, will have significance in marking down and signing as they're moving these ballots. So the chain of custody within the audit is great, but the chain of custody for the election was shite.
Right.
Yeah.
By comparison, yeah.
By comparison. Now here's the second problem. We're going to talk about the second problem. This is about the routers. We've mentioned this before. This is 1155 to 1443. And this is pretty cool right now because you're going to hear one of the other contractors. His name is Ben Cotton from Cipher. He's going to talk about that because this is his areas of expertise when it comes to a lot of the programming, the routers, looking at the logs. That's what this guy does. But take a look at his answer for what happens with the routers.
About equipment a second. You relayed in the concerns that you had that I relayed to Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, there were questions about the routers that we were supposed to, from our subpoena, we were going to get things. You had mentioned to me before I did this letter of a concern that we were supposed to get some equipment and we didn't get it. Could you explain that to us, please?
A little over a week before the machines were to be delivered, I was having questions with Mr. LaRue, the Assistant County Attorney, as to how they were going to handle the routers that were part of the subpoenas and the other hubs and related internet connectivity equipment, if that's the term. I'm not sure it is, but I'll call it that. And about a week before the machines were to be delivered, I called Mr. LaRue and offered that we could have the contractor that would be looking at the routers actually come to McTech and look at the routers while they were still installed and in place in McTech so that nothing had to be removed or disturbed. He called me back the next day and said that they had removed all of the equipment and that they had replaced it at great expense to the county, and that all of that would be on a pallet delivered with the rest of the equipment on what turned out to be April 21st. When the 21st arrived, and I couldn't see or identify that pallet of internet equipment or routers or hubs or whatever, I asked him where they were, and he said that they had decided not to do it that way, that they were still back in the building, and that they would provide us virtual access was the term that he used. I believe these two gentlemen were standing nearby me when that happened. And so we were told that instead of receiving that equipment, we would receive virtual access. That continued to be their position for more than 2 weeks. And when we finally pushed on when are we going to get virtual access, then they eventually came back and said that the routers in McTech are somehow connected to the Sheriff's Department and other county departments, and that if they gave them to us or even gave us virtual access, that Social Security numbers would be at risk and county health records, and so they have now refused to give us even virtual access.
So, Madam President, if I may.
Fam, and I got the next picture up. Johnny, you can put it up as we're talking about. Maricopa County Elections Department also puts up the reason why the routers are the blueprints to the county. Providing that information puts lives at risk. Social Security numbers are out there. Law enforcement will be at risk. But they did the whole two-step. Well, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, we'll give you this, we'll give you that.
And they didn't.
Stall techniques, and then they didn't. So now we have Ben Cotton entering, one of the contractors from a company called Cipher. And watch what Ben Cotton says about their bullshit lies. This is 1702 to 1953. Watch what he says about their bullshit lies about what the routers actually contain and how they work.
Kind of the function of a router in layman's terms. So if you think of a packet of data as an envelope in the U.S. postal system, the router is essentially the carrier that delivers that envelope to the right mailbox. Okay, you've got a originating address, you've got a destination address. The data is contained in a packet, and the router typically does not record any of that information inside of the packet. It simply delivers that envelope to the proper mailbox that it's destined for. My confusion here with the stance that the county is taking is that, well, it's twofold. So the first point of concern / confusion is the assertion that PII data and Maricopa County resident data would be compromised by examining the router. That data should not exist on that router, period. So to state that it could be compromised would be an inaccurate statement or an inaccurate portrayal of what the data is on the router. The second piece on this that is concerning to me is that there have been public reports by ProVNV, there have been statements by the county saying that these election systems don't actually touch the internet. Therefore, the extension of that would be that they do not touch the county network because that's exposed to the internet. And to say that the data corresponding to these networks would somehow compromise law enforcement activity or PII data seems incongruous to the previous statements. Okay, and if you take the letter, which states these compromises would occur at face value, then de facto that means that the election data had to be exposed to the internet, which I don't know if it's the case or not, but that's certainly something that we need to explore given the inconsistencies in these public statements and reports that they have presented. The actual fact is that after they shut down the provisioning of us with this data, there have been no other offers for us to get access to the data, to review the data, or otherwise obtain that data.
There you go. So they're playing the do-si-do with the routers right now. Number one, they're lying about what the routers will really have as far as data, as far as social security numbers and blueprints to the county. Number two, they're giving, once again, the two-step again. We'll give it to you, we won't give it to you. And there's been no offer to say, hey, listen, we'll give you the router information, we'll give you the Splunk logs, which will show, because they know damn well one of the biggest claims Maricopa County's made is that these tabulation machines haven't been hooked up to the internet. Well, show us. Show us the routers. Plain and simple, they won't do it. Really quickly, just pointing out Ben Cotton, because this guy has flown under the radar. He's the CEO of this company called Ceasefire. I just put up his LinkedIn page right over there if you wanted to see it, or his Ceasefire.com. There he is. You can look down below on the left, Johnny. It has like his information of his jobs, of his history. He started off, he was a warrant officer, and you can see he went to the University of Maryland. So he's worked in cybersecurity for quite some time. The guy's also testified at Congress several times before. He's no lightweight whatsoever. The company Ceasefire.com is a forensic audit analyst company of sorts that looks at all your cybersecurity needs as far as who's going in and who's going out, and they can figure everything out. And Ben Cotton right now, just really quick, I just put here, there's 1 minute right there. There's this Ceasefire, his strengthens your cyber resilience. He's got a cool little video there if you want to go there and check it out. But this guy's flown under the radar because he's one of the contractors, and instead they went for the low-hanging fruit and dug Logan because Cyber Ninja sounds way more bullshit.
Right.
But Ben Cotton, really quick, they just asked him really quick, and this is him just saying, yeah, I've testified for Congress, I've done this, this is all my work before, I'm legit. 1953.
If I may, Mr. Cotton, have you...
just 1 minute, Johnny.
What kind of experience do you have accessing confidential or top secret data?
So we routinely work for some of the largest companies in the world with incident response breaches, with forensics matters, and we are entrusted with that data, and we have never had an exposure, a leak, or any type of data being emitted from our custody. I also have personal experience at the highest levels of government supporting agencies in which security clearances are required.
So, Madam President, Mr. Cotton, are you confident that you could look at the routers without risking any security concerns or breaches to the county?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Watch for the smear campaign on this guy, fam. They're going to go out there. Listen, I get the routers. Nothing's going to be leaked. Nothing will get out. The county's full of shite. Give us the routers. Can we see what's going on? So now they're saying that they haven't been given the routers, and if they are given the routers, there will be no security breach. In his company, in his personal life, whatever the case may be, anytime he's done work, there has not been a security breach. He's very confident he can get that information out so we can see what's what. But you know, fam, they're not going to let us see us because we know, and we've heard this. This has been something we've been going through. Even Johnny caught him in New Hampshire. They're connected to the internet. Yeah. Don't give me that fucking malarkey. Here is the third problem real quick. We're going to spend a little bit of time on this. This is the secondary passwords not given to the audit team. And the thing about it is, fam, is that what they were giving was poll worker access. They're not giving administrative or technical access so they can go in and look at everything. Here's a quick clip, 3619 to 3901, about the secondary passwords that they are not given.
Mr. Cotton, I want to, we asked you about your qualifications earlier, but I just had a couple of extra questions on your professional background I want to ask because I thought this was important for your qualifications. Have you been admitted as an expert witness in legal proceedings with respect to your computer forensics?
I have.
Have you testified before the U.S. Congress with respect to the Office of Personal Management breach of 2015?
I have. I believe it was on 3 separate occasions.
I want to go to the passwords. And I want to ask you some questions about that. What level of passwords and access did the county provide you to the Dominion tabulators?
So the county initially provided us a security key and poll worker access to the systems. Now with the poll level access, you can open a tabulator, you can open an election, and you can close an election. The challenge there is that what my purview is to actually determine the configuration of that tabulator. We know, for example, that there are 2, what they call...
And what do you need to get the...
That requires a separate access at either the administrator or the technician level. Okay. Yeah. And we know, for example, that there are 2 RJ45 network connectors on these tabulators. We don't know what those configurations are. We don't know if there is a card internal to the system that might be a Verizon wireless card. We know those tabulators of that model certainly have that capability, but we don't know what the configuration is for the Maricopa County tabulators.
Okay. Who controls, possesses, or has access?
That's okay. We can stop that there. All right, so there it is, fam. They don't have access. What the county gave over was poll worker access, which is access me and you would get if we volunteered to go open up a poll, open up an election, close an election. They don't have administrative rights. They don't have technical administrative rights. So they can't get in and see what's going on. And he even said, we don't know what's in there. It could be a freaking Verizon wireless card that's sitting in there. We need to get access in there to make sure to see what's going on. So those are 3 problems. They're not been given to them. They're still, that's why this is taking so long. And then 4th, the deleted files. Here's a little bit thing on this. I'm only going to go a minute and about a half on this really quick because it appears that even though they see there was a bunch of deleted files, the files were deleted before all the machinery and everything was given over to them. It seems like Mr. Ben Cotton was able to go through that roadblock. I don't know if this is really about setting a narrative, if what they deleted was necessary, was good, or something they can find, but it's still out there and he talks about it.
and striped across both drives as well. Obviously, if I don't turn on a system, I don't have access to the RAID parameters, and the county did not provide those to us. So I had to do a discovery process to determine what that RAID configuration was. Part of that process is a scan across those drives to detect partitions of data and to also detect what we call a master file table. So a master file table, very simply put, is a record of all of the directories and the files that are contained in that partition, and a pointing and a pointer to where that data resides on the hard drive. In the course of performing that MFT discovery, I discovered a MFT that clearly indicated that the database directory was deleted from that server. So all of this, however, may be a moot point because subsequently I've been able to recover all of those deleted files and I have access to that data.
So,
He just says one more thing.
with that being said, do you still need to get that database from the county, or did that rebuilding or recovery that you did, does that have the information you currently need for that database?
I have the information I need from the recovery efforts of the data.
There you go.
Okay. Well, that's some.
So there he goes, and he says, "Oh, that's some good news. All right, so we got through a roadblock. They deleted a bunch of files, but he was able to find them, and he was able to go back and see what was in those files. So I don't know if he's trying to make the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors sweat what's in those files, or it was just maybe a bunch of malarkey. We don't know until that information comes out.
But
However,
he knows what's in them.
He knows what's in them. But we also see the fact that they are deleting files, and they
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing that too as well.
Right
And that's
before they
something-
handed it off.
Right before they handed
Yeah.
off that equipment. Just finally, they also talked briefly about the blue pens that were there. In other words, everything that the mainstream media put out there, they kind of debunked. They talked briefly, oh, these blue pens, we caught it really in the beginning. We removed these blue pens so nobody can mark any ballots. They talked about ballot security during the audit and how they're constantly the 8 people walking back, signing off, that they know exactly what they're counting, exactly what ballot. There are people watching other people. They talked about the cameras on the observers and the audit teams, that they're everywhere. They're above the tables. They're all over the place. You can't sneeze without somebody seeing it. You can't pick your nose because you will be on camera. And they also asked Doug Logan, about a timeline. And he said because of the hurdles and now everything they have in place, the extra volunteers they coming in, they should be done by the end of June. And I just want to play this last statement right now from Doug Logan, because Doug Logan really threw out a biscuit here. You know, we asked John Brakey about this guy, and he's a solid guy. He's been doing a lot of this work. He looked at the machines in Atrium County before Dominion Machines. That's why they brought him over here, along with Ben Cotton, a great team. It really are. But listen to what Doug Logan says here, fam. This is so important because he lets everybody know out there something important that they need to know about our elections, and the main issue that we feel sometimes needs to be fixed.
Of times that this password that we need for the tabulators somehow gives access to the source code. It does not give access to the source code. Source code is what the programmer writes, which gets turned into a program, and then that program is what is actually deployed in any given system. There's some miscommunication or misunderstanding to think that this password would give access to any source code, and so hopefully that can help alleviate some concerns and get what we need in order to finish this audit.
There you go.
Okay, that was helpful.
Fam, mentions the source code. Very important. Pretty much just saying that they're not allowed to look at it. They're not going to get it right now. It's just the source code is the main elephant in the room. No matter what they go through over here, if we have proprietary software and a source code that we can't look at, that source code can tell those machines to count them any way they want, and we wouldn't know. Even if, I don't even know what Mark Fincham said it being an escrow, if that would work. Who knows? We have to get through this problem of having proprietary software and a source code that is not an open source code, because then it can manipulate elections all the time. I'm very and that was something that wasn't asked of Doug Logan. That was at the end. He said, I want to clear something up right now. We ain't getting the source code. We're not going to know what's what. We will not know. That source code can be manipulated, put in any machine, and that's what the machines are going to do, what the source code told it to do. So I'm very glad that Doug Logan did mention that on his own terms towards the end of this hearing. This very important, informative hearing about getting our elections straight moving forward. Finally, I just want to show
our
friends who are still crying. They're shitting their pants. Here's Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. The lone Democrat, Stephen Gillard-ass, couldn't go to the hearing, but he had time to go on MSDNC and cry and gaslight the people and speak for the other Republicans. And watch what the mainstream media just fucking sucks. This is how you know they're propaganda.
Compare this coverage to that.
Yeah.
County Board of Supervisors in Arizona. He is the lone Democrat on a 5-member board there that has now come to the end of its patience, that is now angrily demanding that the Republicans in the state Senate that have been conducting this election fraud fantasy audit of Arizona's presidential election results, they are demanding that they call it off once and for all before any more damage is done. Mr. Gallardo, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's a real pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
I feel like you have been a loud voice against this from the very beginning, talking about the danger of this, the ridiculousness of this, the real damage that could be done by this and how it would be used in those ways you just described. What feels like is new is in the last few days, so many Republicans in Arizona, including fellow Republicans on the board with you in Maricopa County, are now basically saying, yeah, we're with you. We're with Supervisor Gallardo on this. This has to end. This is dangerous. We need to call an end. We need to call a stop to this. It's gone too far. It's doing too much damage. What sort of turned it on for Republicans? What changed their minds and made them see it the way they now seem to?
Enough is enough. The fact is that we received a letter from the Arizona State Senate accusing us of committing crimes here in the state of Arizona and in Maricopa County. They have called for us to be arrested. Enough is enough. I believe that many of the Republicans there in Maricopa County have said this is enough. We're not going to continue to stand on the sidelines and be quiet. We're going to speak out. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing members not only on my board, but county-wide elected Republican officials. You're seeing Senate Republicans that are now stepping up and saying enough is enough. The fact is that they have done more damage to our democracy, the credibility of our election system over the last 6 months than ever before. And it's time for elected officials to stand up and say enough is enough, knock it off, stop this ridiculous sham audit. And for those that want to sit on the sidelines, our Governor Ducey, wants to sit quietly on the sidelines, doesn't want to upset Trump and the Trump loyalists. Enough is enough. He needs to step up. The Attorney General who wants to run for governor, he needs to step up. No more standing on the sideline. Anyone who is wanting to run for office in 2022 needs to pick a side. Are you on the side of conspiracy theorists and con artists, or are you on the side of democracy, the Constitution, and the rule of law? You have to pick a side. No more standing quiet on the sidelines. If you want to run for public office, you need to let the voters of the state of Arizona and Maricopa County know exactly which side you are on. That is question number one in the 2022 election. We need to stop this ridiculous sham audit. We need to restore our confidence in our democracy. And the only way we can do that is by telling the voters the truth. Our election was safe, secure, and accurate.
Bam.
If our election was so secure, safe, and accurate, why are you so against an audit? Why are you maligning an audit? And also, we told you that election interference, election fraud, election malfeasance is a bipartisan practice. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. What matters is what gang you belong to and who you want to win. It's always been like this. So them saying, oh, even Republicans are on board. We've been telling you that Republicans are on board with Democrats. We've been telling you this for fucking years now. This happens all the time. This is nothing new. They're acting like, oh my God, if even Republicans are on board, then that means this is a threat to our democracy. This is our threat to our democracy. Everything they don't want you to find out, they always say it's a threat to your democracy. Yeah. What's a threat to our democracy? First of all, we don't have a democracy. Second of all, it's having mistrust in a system where people think that people actually smuggled bamboo paper from China. If people believe that, that's your fault, because you've allowed it. You've allowed this distrust in the system. Right? And that's good. It's good that people distrust the system because the system has screwed them. But if you want to get that system back, fucking be transparent, and they're not being transparent at all.
The sham audit. He had no time to show up to Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. They were invited to that hearing with Karen Pham to give answers. Here, come bring your side of the story. We'll talk about what's going on. Let's get our election straight. And let me tell you something. Arizona and Karen Pham, they've been a lot more...
Fan, right?
Fan.
It sounds like you're saying Karen Pham. I'm
no,
like,
Karen
she's
Fan,
not Pham.
like the blowing of a fan. But she's been very upfront about this. This is not about going back and switching the results of the election. This is about how we create laws moving forward to make sure that our elections are fair, transparent, publicly trackable, and publicly verified. Yeah. Like, you have to track every ounce of this to say, okay, this is fair. And the fact that they're shitting their pants, they're screaming, enough is enough. Pick a side. My name is Stephen, go hard ass. Please get over here and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Please don't ever do that.
I mean,
that's scary.
pick a side.
No,
I mean, enough is enough. You saw how high his voice got. It's ridiculous. They're
chills.
shitting their pants. And you know what? This is a domino effect as far as other states getting their election process right. This is something the Democrats, the progressives should have been on, right? You know what I'm saying? Like we said, we heard somebody who said to us, progressives, this happens to us, they'll kick and scream, and then they'll go back to doing what they normally do. The Republicans in the state in Arizona said, you ain't going to do this shit to us ever again. We're fixing our elections, and that's what they're doing. They're fixing. They're getting your ass kicked by a bunch of Trumpers when it comes to election integrity. And I'll tell you this much: a lot more progressives have suffered at the reign of our fucking election systems than any conservatives have. So many grassroots progressives have suffered at the reign of our election systems than any conservative. We know about. We've seen this all around. If you think Nancy Pelosi gets all those votes legitimately, then you're sniffing some serious glue, and I want some. Let me read some of these Super Rays. Anything else, Johnny? You got anything to say on the whole thing? Thank you so much. I worked hard on it last night. I love you guys, and I love the fact that we talk about election integrity. We may need to go out to New Hampshire. Shit's going down over there. Super Ray from Trey Wright, always one of the first to come in there. It's always appreciated on the couch. A new guy, Imposter Kevin. He's the imposter. I'm the imposter. He's the imposter. The Convo Couch, better than all the rest. Shadow Band Refugee, we love you. Hit us up. No mas, cucktube, censorship, rock fam, or bust. He says no
rock
mas.
Fam.
Rock fam. I love it. Rock fam. Roar Media, our brothers, sisters over there. We love you, Roar. We know Trump isn't coming back. The big question is, when's Biden going to get here with what he campaigned on? D, love you guys. J9 Campbell, thank you for, oh my God, J9 Campbell left the bomb. J9 Campbell, I'm going to give you the big one. It's always appreciated on the couch.
Write stuff so he doesn't do that, guys.
J9 Campbell, thank you so much for the love. Benny Massimo, we need a full forensic audit for every election. People who do not get this don't deserve fair and honest elections. Benny, you're so right. I mean, what's the point of having elections if they can't be publicly tracked, publicly verified? The public, it's our elections. We're paying for it. We should be able to see what's what. Hunter Carranza can't watch right now, but we'll watch it a bit from the beginning. Much love to you guys, Hunter and Ty.
We love you.
We love you guys. Guys, there's 68 people watching on the Rokfin. Let's get that up to 100. There's 244 on the YouTubes.
Let's get that up. Like, share, subscribe. Guys, we need to get back into the algorithm. And also, please, if you haven't checked out Rokfin, sign up for free. Yeah. I sound like pasta. Okay. So
yes,
we are having, we have a great guest today. They are organizing, he and others are organizing a march for Medicare for All. Now, we've seen what happened with Force the Vote. We've seen how that can, at least get the discussion out there. Because if AOC thinks the words are violent, they're not going to do anything to push legislation for that, but they sure as hell will push legislation to impeach Trump. And one of the things that has been happening is things have been getting worse under COVID. Whatever you believe about COVID, the fact is people don't have health care. And you would think that a pandemic would be the perfect reason, right? A pandemic would be the perfect reason to give them health care. Mm-hmm. And guess what? It wasn't. I mean, Joe Biden ran on a public option and he completely backed away from that. Not that I'm an advocate of a public option, but they won't even give people that. Meanwhile, we're paying Israel. We're funding Israel, and Israel has health care. We literally are funding another country that is committing genocide. And you don't get health care. In fact, you don't get anything. I'm not saying, it would make it any better. But I am saying that if you believe that this is an economic system, right? If you put aside modern monetary theory and you're like, okay, well, this is what your tax dollars are going to fund. That's what they tell you. then we're funding genocide and you still don't get health care and you still get nothing. So we have Ricky today to come and talk about
Rants.
Ricky Dunlop. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited. You're on Twitter. You're very, you're a fighter. You're a revolutionary on Twitter. You always have something to say, and I love that about you. But you and several others are organizing marches for Medicare for All across several cities, including D.C., Los Angeles, and Seattle. Tell us why you're doing this and what inspired you to take action in the form of a march for Medicare for All.
Ooh, that's a long story. I guess we can go back to force the vote. I was actually down in DC with you guys. But I was down there with you, marching, risking arrest, when they actually arrested people at the Capitol back in the day. Apparently they didn't do it a couple days later. They just let people do whatever they want. Yeah. We protested for 3 days. We didn't get any results. We didn't even get a nod from Congress showing you that they don't care to listen. We were a little bit disappointed that we didn't get anything whatsoever. We kind of knew that could be the outcome of that, obviously. Hence why Fraud Squad was trending immediately after. But I got back to New York and I was talking to my friend Sharif, who wanted to come to the Force the Vote protest, just couldn't make it for whatever reason. And we were like, how do we keep the momentum going? Because every time something like Force the Vote happens, it happens, and then it just kind of dies, and we don't know what to do next. And kind of like when Bernie didn't get obviously didn't get the nomination, Medicare for All seemed like it was never going to happen, right? So we're like, how do we keep this in the public conversation with Biden coming into the White House, who doesn't want it to be, in the mainstream? How do we keep this conversation going? So Sharif was like, we need to go back to DC. And I was like, okay, I'm down. If you're into that idea, I'm into it. Like, what do we do? He's like, we need to do a big march. We need to get people together. And I was like, all right, so if we do it this summer, we'll have months of planning. Force the Vote was kind of a spur of the moment thing because it happened kind of organically like that. So I was like, all right, I'm down. If we're going to do this, we're going to plan for it and we're going to make it bigger and better. And we're going to try to keep this going. And we started planning this Washington, D.C. march probably back in late January. We were just kind of getting our feet wet back then. But as soon as we started bringing in more people, it just kind of caught fire. People were like, well, I'm out here on the West Coast. I want to do something here. And I was like, well, if you want to organize something over there, I'm going to be in D.C. But if you want to do that, I'll support you and I'll help you. And, Los Angeles popped up second. And then people in Seattle were like, whoa, we have a single payer initiative up here. We're already on the ground. We want to do something up here. And we were like, okay, cool. And then it just kind of caught fire. And then our idea was to just let people do solidarity events all over the country under the banner, make this a big grassroots effort. And people are popping up all over the country wanting to participate in this day of action. So we've added San Francisco, we've added Albuquerque, we've added New York City as of late.
Oh, okay.
We have interest in Chicago, we have interest in Portland, we have interest in San Diego, and we have rumblings in other places around the country. We'll see what happens, but a lot of people are going to be participating around the country.
Do you think that the Force the Vote and this great unmasking of the left, where we saw people take sides, do you think it was really necessary to fight for healthcare? Because now we know who's really for it and who's really against it. I mean, I had no problem with anybody saying we should force the vote. My issue was with people saying, how dare you go and force the vote? If you don't want to get aboard with this, why stop others from fighting this? What is the thought now that this is all out in the open?
I mean, the whole force the vote thing still doesn't make much sense to me. Like, I understand if you think it's not a great strategy. Like, it is a strategy. You can say, oh, I don't think it's going to work. That's fine. Almost nothing works when you're dealing with Congress, right? But the way that some people sort of kind of came into it, and they were like, well, this strategy shouldn't happen because that didn't make any sense to me. Because the idea is to get Medicare for all, no matter how we get it, and if people are going to come in here and say, well, you don't understand politics, or you don't understand strategy, or you don't understand what happens behind closed doors. Yeah. Okay, none of us do. We
really know what's going on.
Does the Intercept get you have a wire, the Intercept? Because I would love to hear it. Let us know what's happening behind closed doors. And if you don't know what's happening behind closed doors, shut up. That's how I feel about it, right?
Yeah.
If you can't tell us what those meetings are exactly, then you shouldn't have an opinion like that. That's how I feel. So I'm down with I'm done with the naysayers. I'm done with the argument. Like, are you fighting for Medicare for all, or are you talking about the strategy that you'll never implement. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
What is it?
So just going off of that, because, this is always the question, electoralism, like how far does that go? Has the squad failed at pushing this issue? I mean, they all ran on it. That was like their issue. AOC had a mask that said Medicare for all, T-shirts, all of these things. Have they failed? And also, do you think that there even remains an electoral path to getting Medicare for all, or are we just going to need more direct actions to get rowdier, to get in the streets? Because for me, my personal opinion is that it's just really difficult to even achieve any electoral win without first pushing it on the ground at this point.
I live in New York City. I was around when AOC was, this kind of up and comer here and was getting famous really quick. I remember her platform when she ran in 2018. And I know at the top of her list, beside abolish ICE, there was Medicare for all. And I know it was one of her top things. And that's how we sold her. That's how we sold her to get her elected. Medicare for all was huge. And she came in talking about Medicare for all a lot. When she first got into Congress, that was a huge thing for her. But as soon as Biden became the nominee, it feels like it slowly turned from Medicare for all to access to health care. And all the language started to change. All the fight went away completely. You don't even see her talking about the New York health campaign. We could actually have single payer healthcare in New York this year. It's possible, but you don't see her fighting for that, do you? So I think that's called a failure. I think that's you failing to live up to your promises. The ruckus that you promised us you would bring, you're not bringing it. If that's how you sell yourself, that's what I want to see, right? So I think that is a failure. And I think the path, the electoral path to Medicare for all, the way that some people see it is like, I don't know, getting 100 more progressives into Congress before the other ones retire. It's I don't know. It seems ridiculous. I think if we're not demanding it, and this is just a drop in the bucket. This first, summer of marches is something that we're putting together for the first time. We're, building this coalition across the country. We've seen a lot of pockets. We see like whole Washington fighting for single payer in the state of Washington. We've seen the New York Health Campaign fighting for single payer in the state of New York. And people are doing a lot of great work. People are putting hours and hours of work to make sure these things get on the ballot and stuff like that. And it's not easy. But we never really see all of these groups come together. We don't see much collaboration across the country. I think Bernie was the only Bernie was, I have problems with Bernie now, obviously, but what Bernie did was actually build this sort of nationwide collective of people. And that's what was kind of special about his campaign trail, is that all these people from around the country came together for a lot of causes, right? Medicare for all, college, tuition, whatever, and many other things. So, we don't have that anymore. And this is something that's not dependent on a politician. It's not dependent on a political party. It's not dependent on a pre-existing organization. So like if an organization fails or a politician doesn't get elected, it doesn't die there. This can continue on because it's just about the grassroots activists, and it can continue on. If I quit tomorrow, it goes on without me. So it doesn't matter.
That's great. Well, let me ask you another question. It's a two-part question because I want the audience to understand what your personal reason is for fighting for healthcare. But I also want to know, too, as well, because I hear a lot of stats when people say, okay, 70% of Americans want a healthcare system, so want universal healthcare in the country. But when you look deeper into a lot of those statistics, a lot of conservatives or libertarians or whatever the case may be, they say they want a system, but they also want the right to still choose health insurance. Do you think a public option, because I get a little bit yelled at by my colleagues and some of my friends, like, I don't know if the public option is the way to go because it might just kind of tank the whole healthcare system. So my two-part question is what personally got you involved in healthcare, and should progressives settle for a public option or no?
Okay, first and foremost, I got into it because I was just tired of seeing people be punished for being sick in America. Yeah. And I know that could be me one day, and it's not about me right now. It's about people around me, my community, where they show me that they have $100,000 in medical bills for next to nothing. They go to the hospital once or twice, and they have incredible medical bills for absolutely no reason. It's a predatory system, and I feel like a lot of us will be there one day. We'll be older and we'll need that care, and the system's only getting more and more unsustainable as it is. So, we don't deserve to fall into that trap. That's just how I feel. And I think healthcare is a human right. I think that's one of the, the few things that we can all agree on, or most of us can agree on, is that healthcare is a right. I think we all have, the right to have, and this is a complicated discussion because I understand libertarians get into like what about the labor involved, and it becomes a very complicated situation. But I don't think anyone deserves to be in debt for being sick, and I don't think healthcare should be tied to employment. I think that's absolutely absurd. As far as public option, I mean, I guess public option is a little bit better, but Medicare for all is great. And for the people that say like, oh, well, I don't get the right to choose, you do get the right to choose still. You absolutely do. You can still go to your doctor that you already go to. You can choose where you receive practice or receive care, I should say. And you can even have health insurance if you want to, but there's just no need for it. You can actually go and get private health insurance on top of Medicare for all. Maybe your employer will still provide health insurance on top of Medicare for all. I don't know, but like it's not necessary. It covers everything. That's the thing. And you'll see in America, good health insurance covers less and less and less every year because the whole system is unsustainable, right? So the good health care that you think you have, the good health insurance you think you have, it's not as good as Medicare for all. It covers everything, just about everything. Only a few luxurious type things does it not cover, but it covers your typical doctor visits, your typical dentist visits, your eyes. It covers like in-home care and all this other stuff. It's such a long list of things that it covers. So I don't see the need for having health insurance when you have a single payer system that takes care of everyone.
One other criticism that I wanted to hear your opinion on, obviously I disagree with it. I mean, a lot of people are afraid that the government will ruin healthcare. When you nationalize healthcare, that means the government's involved. So a lot of people see what the government is doing, what they're not doing, and say, we don't trust the government, right? A more anarchist mentality. We don't trust the government. They're going to ruin our lives. Why don't we just provide healthcare for our communities? So what do you think will happen first? Mutual aid and people providing their own healthcare? Because if we look back to the Black Panther Party, they did that. They started providing healthcare for their communities. They started providing the freedom schools because the government failed at doing this. Do you think we're going to see something like that rise up before we get nationalized healthcare?
I'm okay with it. I love the push for mutual aid that I've seen kind of growing lately. And it might take a little bit of both before, it might take some local wins, in like Washington State or New York State, and these little mutual aid groups popping up and providing healthcare. I mean, no matter what, people are going to get left behind if you're trying to rely on mutual aid to take care of everyone. And I think it's great that people are taking care of each other. But yeah, we might see a combination of both local single payer wins and mutual aid kind of coming together to kind of lift everyone up. The thing is, like the government, the government can sabotage single payer healthcare just like it sabotages everything. Yeah. And it can also sabotage mutual aid, unfortunately. Yeah. You already see AOC kind of co-opting mutual aid for her own political benefit. Who knows where that's going to go, Yeah.
You're not allowed to collect rainwater in some states.
Yeah.
Johnny, you got any questions over here for Ricky Rants? All right. Tell us, Ricky, where can we get involved with your whole movement and get in the streets, maybe get some berets on our heads and just start marching? Because I do, too, believe that Medicare, is a human right. Like housing should be a human right. So let us know where we can get involved.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants to come to a meeting and come check us out, you're more than welcome. Anyone in the chat, you can see with your own eyes, so you know what's going on. You can check us out at m4all.org. That's M4, all.org. We're also on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on Reddit. So we're all over the place. March for Medicare for All. You'll find us all over now. And if you want to start something locally, reach out, come to a meeting, or just get in touch with a local event if you want.
Well, thank you for doing this, because I've been calling for direct action for healthcare forever. And when Force the Vote came up, obviously I was on board, but I wanted the continuation. Obviously, we're doing a million things here. We don't always have time to organize protests, but I will attend as many as I can. I will cover as many as you. And since it's in Los Angeles, of course, we'll cover it. We'll be there. And it's important, really, to promote this, to make this a growing movement. I believe this is the way. Direct action is the way. you demand anything, the push always comes from the bottom up. It never comes first from pushing papers in Congress and expecting that to happen and waiting around. And we need to stop with the non-binding resolutions, which are a couple of things that we're going to get into. But thank you, Ricky, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Hey, Ricky.
Thank you.
Healthcare is a human right.
Healthcare is a human right.
Fight, fight, fight. Thank you, Ricky. We appreciate
Thanks,
you
man.
coming on. Good luck in your quest, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ricky Rants over there, ladies and gentlemen.
That was
Ricky
awesome.
Rants.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, without force of vote, I don't think there would have been this push to happen. I don't think people would have seen like the veil fall off of so many people that claim to be for healthcare, but only if somebody they like, with the education they like, with the elitist mentality they like, is fighting for it. So this force of vote totally exposed a lot of people, and I'm glad people are continuing to do this. This is what I like to see, marches everywhere. By the way, today the McDonald's workers are striking for a minimum wage. So solidarity with the McDonald's workers. There's so much going on, you guys, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason all these things are happening right now at this very moment, and we need to seize upon this moment. I keep saying that because otherwise the moment passes us by, just like the pandemic passed us by. A pandemic, right? Supposedly, if this pandemic is as horrible as they say it was, right? Don't you think they would have provided you health care? Instead, now they're pushing vaccines to people while they're drinking. They're like going to bars and putting and like bribing people for vaccines, and like all of this is happening.
Do you know what's the crazy thing I saw? I saw an Instagram ad popped up on my Instagram feed. It said, "Dead mouse, Vegas, Friday, must be vaccinated. Proof of vaccination.
Wow.
Proof
Dead
of
mouse?
vaccination." And then it says also a test within the 72 hours, confirming that you're not sick though.
Both?
That's no. You can do one or the other.
Oh, okay.
But like, still, they're pushing the vaccine.
Yeah.
And all the comments in there are like, "Oh, the vaccine. You're pushing the vaccine," and you know, a lot of people are pissed about it. It's
a lot of people are pissed, but a lot of people are like, "Yeah, well, it's for the benefit of everybody." Like, so it's kind of like.
And then some people don't even trust the event because they're like, "Oh yeah, people are gonna fake it and stuff," you know.
Yeah, they're mad about that. No, trust me, I see all but my friends like. A business has the right to refuse if you don't get a vaccine. It doesn't violate HIPAA, blah, 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 blah. Like all these things. It's like, guys, like take the vaccine or don't, but it should not be a mandatory thing. And that's what they're pushing. It's your choice to take it or not. If this country really gave a damn about saving you, they would have provided medicine first.
Yeah.
They would have provided like preventative measures like ivermectin. They would have provided all this crap. They're not providing that. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not allowed to say that.
They would have provided more information.
They would have provided chips and salsa.
They would chips and salsa. They would open up the doors to more conversations and whatnot. In other countries, what they're doing. What happened in Nicaragua? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nobody even talks about that shit. You know what I'm saying? It should be a choice. This is bullshit. This is about money. This is about control. This is kind of disgusting. And why would we trust Big Pharma after all these years of them trying to kill us and being sued? Penalties hand over fist, billions and
make
billions of
Medicare
dollars.
for all a thing, and then I'll think about taking your vaccine. How about that?
Exactly. Guys, we have 44 likes, thumbs up on our Rokfin. We have 84 people watching.
Come on,
that
we
means you
need
need
to
to
double it.
smash that like button.
Smash it.
And if you're on the YouTubes, get on over to the Rokfin for free. It is ROKFIN. I have my knishes with Golden's mustard, fam. It's a brown, spicy mustard.
Fam.
Yes.
Okay, so this is my favorite subject because I wanted to talk about Joe Biden. Uncle Joe and the Democrats and the Biden administration, of course, approved the $735 million to Israel in spite of what Israel's obviously going to be using that money for, is to commit genocide on Palestinians, continue killing more babies, more children, more families. Continue, displacing people, basically aiding in this genocide. Now, that was always going to happen because Joe Biden received over $3 million from pro-Israel Israeli groups. Now,
I'm a Zionist, fam.
He's always been one, and he's never hit it. That's the worst part. People, like I said, got amnesia because it was Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. They pretended that Joe Biden's 47-year record didn't exist. Now, let's look at this. The latest numbers, I think they've even gone up, actually.
Yeah.
The Gaza Health Ministry, I think it's now 227.
Yep.
Including 63 children and 36 women. perhaps 64 now, in addition to 1,500 others injured, what I was reading this morning. But that's what I'm saying. This toll keeps going up, and you guys can look at the disaster that is Gaza. You can't even say, oh, what conditions are in Gaza. The conditions are people are getting murdered. People are getting killed. And with our weapons and with our the funding by the United States. And, of course, gallantly, like I said, Joe Biden has decided to give them, I'll just use the pictures, the money, right? And so the Washington Post reported that Joe Biden administration approved $735 million, and these are precision guided weapons specifically to Israel, raising red flags for some of the House Democrats who are part of a shifting debate over the U.S. government's support for the Israeli government and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Fam, it's shifting now.
Now
it's shifting.
There's a lot going on with that.
Please.
We could get into that. We were all talking in the chat. But okay, so they were officially notified, right? This is what I'm saying. This was going to happen. They were officially notified of this on May 5th. Excuse me. 3 people based on Capitol Hill said that this is the case, right? The 3 journalists. Now, that was a week before Hamas. This is what the Washington Post writes, right? They say that was nearly a week before Hamas, a terrorism designated organization that controls the Gaza Strip, began intense rocket attacks against Israel that have reportedly killed at least 10 Israelis.
Really?
Notice how they point out 10 dead Israelis, but not like the 227 dead people like Palestinians when it comes to this, right? And look how they paint them as terrorists, etc. And so then it says, okay, they left nearly 200 Palestinians dead and sparked worldwide calls for diplomatic action. Yeah. This crisis is the worst since the 2014 Hamas-Israeli war that lasted nearly 2 months. Okay, that we've talked about that before. The Hamas framing is just ridiculous. But yeah, the Hamas framing out of control here, right? And so Donald Trump, let's go back to Donald Trump on the next one. Donald Trump had vetoed 3 resolutions passed by Congress in 2019 to stop arms sales benefiting Saudi Arabia and the UAE after the House and Senate voted to block the arms deal worth more than $8 billion. Now, this was, of course, because of what was going on with Yemen, right? The United States is always on the sidelines, or actually, in right there, pushing when it comes to genocide, both in Yemen through Saudi Arabia and, of course, Palestine and Israel. Now, that's just showing you that like whoever, it doesn't matter who's in power, right? This is still going to be an issue. But a spokesperson for the House Foreign Affairs Committee confirmed that Congress was notified on May 5th of the commercial deal in which Boeing will provide the weapons to Israel. Oh. So they were specifically notified about Boeing providing weapons to Israel. But some foreign affairs lawmakers were caught off guard over the weekend when they first learned of the sale, according to a source with knowledge, blah, blah, blah. So,
excuse me for a second. Bullshit.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
I
according
apologize.
to a source, they didn't know. They were caught off
guard, fam.
But they were supposedly notified a long time ago. Now, this is what I mean by it was always going to happen. They know what's going on. They know we fund this. They know that many of them are actually powerless to do anything because we live in an empire. And when you live in an empire, you have very little power to do any of this, right? So Rashida Tlaib, like I said, she's been better than the rest when it comes to this issue, but still, there's a lot of virtue signaling. Bullshit. So there was an interaction with Biden, right? She interacted with him, and this is from the New York Times. She was on a tarmac in Detroit, and she confronted President Biden on the U.S. support for Israel, and she basically told him like he's got to stop the money, like the weapons deal. He's got to stop that, and he was extremely condescending. So I'm gonna read a little bit of that, a little bit of what she said. Basically, they described this as it was a very compassionate, honest discussion. But the president doesn't deal with these kinds of issues in public, and he doesn't negotiate in public. Oh, my God. He's so above that. Mr. Biden shook Ms. Tlaib's hand after the conversation and later praised the congresswoman during his public remarks at the factory in Dearborn.
Here, let me do that. You can't. Yeah.
Your computer is
unfortunately. No, this is the slides. You got to be careful with that. Okay.
He said, I admire your intellect, I admire your passion, and I admire your concern for so many other people, said Biden, before referring to Tlaib's grandmother, Muftia Tlaib, who lives in the West Bank. From my heart, I pray that your grandmom and family are well. I promise you I'll do everything to see that they are. Okay, so because she's a congresswoman, we're going to take care of her, but like I pray that they're well. Is your prayer going to save these people? Like, and so, you know, that's Tlaib went in there, that happened. The cameras were, you know, just automatically there to capture that moment. Ooh, the squad is fighting back.
Yeah.
But where are the actions, right? Where I needed some actions. And did you have anything to say before I go on?
Well, if we're sticking on Tlaib, once again, Tlaib the other day said on TV, well, this is Hamas. We don't stand by Hamas and stuff like that. That's not your place to say that. If the people of Palestine have voted in Hamas as their government, it's their right to have Hamas represent them. Yeah, we don't like everything about them, but we know when Hamas started, it was funded by Israel back in the days as a countermeasure to the PLO, which was a what? A secular socialist government. They didn't want that, so they allowed this to happen to bring in, which is also equivalent to the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah, they brought. Yeah.
I mean, but that's their choice, and if that's their choice, we have to respect that. The whole Hamas excuse for doing what they're doing is getting fucking old. It's getting
beyond,
old. It's beyond old at this point. It's not an excuse to manufacture consent for your death.
And that's exactly what you do every time you bring up Hamas must be condemned. Because if you are really for helping Palestine, you know that under international law, they have every right to actually retaliate because they're in an open air prison. They can't leave. Yeah. This is not a war where you have two giant armies facing off each other. No. You have one side that has an army, one side that has a non-existent army.
Shooting bottle rockets.
And so and they're getting help from, of course, Syria, Lebanon, etc., countries that we have vilified to no end, by the way. And so when you condemn Hamas, you're really showing you're not really on the side of Palestinians, because as a Westerner, you have no rights, as your country is funding the death of these people, to say, oh, actually, don't do it this way, do it that way. You're not getting bombed on. Your family isn't in danger. You have zero right to say that. And so when politicians especially manufacture consent of, oh, these are violent terrorists, Hamas, you're not doing them any favors. Yeah. You have to be, and I interviewed Eva Bartlett this morning, and I'm going to be releasing that tomorrow, likely. And, one of the things that she really talked about, because she's been in the region, she was in the region for years early on, and, very little has changed. It's only the public, the awareness that is now changing. But when you say you support Palestine, you can't be saying, oh, let's condemn Hamas. She made that point. It's like you can't be doing that.
Yeah. Why don't they even mention the fact that, and this is not a secret thing, that Israel funded Hamas in the beginning? Nobody talks about that. You have no right to say, okay, well, Hamas is the problem now when you created that beast. No right. Zero. So shut the hell up and stop. Yeah. It's bullshit. It's bullshit.
One more thing I want to say is that before this, the divisions in Palestine, the political divisions were stronger. Now, all of those people have put their issues aside and have united in an effort to fight for Palestine. That's what's happening now as we speak, and there's a reason for that, right? Yeah. And now that the people are getting kind of this feeling that there are more eyes because of the internet, because of TikTok, because of just the access to information, and also it's just hard. Israel's losing the narrative, and so now they're doing everything they can to salvage it. Of course, the United States is still backing them, and so when I asked Eva, is a resolution, is that the answer? It's like, well, no, we're still gonna fund Israel as long as we fund Israel.
Yeah,
right. This is gonna keep happening. So AOC. Okay, and this is from the Jewish Current. Breaking news today, progressive legislators, not just AOC, but of course the progressives, will be introducing a resolution. They haven't done it yet. They're on the verge of doing
it.
Blocking bomb sales to Israel. So this was AOC, Wisconsin Congressman Mark Pocan, who is a dick.
There he is.
He's a dick. Michigan Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib are preparing to introduce a resolution that would block the United States' planned $735 million sale of bombs to Israel. It was already approved. It's going to happen.
It's a resolution. Ain't going to stop anything.
An early draft of the legislation obtained by the Jewish Currents. The resolution would halt the planned transfer of so-called JDAMS, or the Joint direct attack munitions and of small diameter bombs, both of which bombs are outfitted with special guidance systems to hit their intended targets. Their intended targets being children and families. Both types of explosives are made by the Chicago-based weapons manufacturer Boeing. Israel has used these JDAMs and small diameter bombs in its current attack on Gaza. So they're already using them. The United States has approved millions of dollars to supply them more. And they said at a time when so many, including our president, support a ceasefire, we should not be sending direct attack weaponry to Prime Minister Netanyahu to prolong this violence. It is long past time to end the U.S. policy of unconditional military arms sales, particularly to governments that have violated human rights. This is an email from AOC's office. And
you hear the language on it, though, Sam? At a time when our president, it even says when it's at a time when so many, including our president, support a ceasefire.
Right.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't.
No, he fucking doesn't.
He didn't support a ceasefire.
Jesus
He said, this
Christ.
is what he said, by the way, for those of you wondering what Biden had actually said, I support a ceasefire if both parties are in accordance to that. But he still, as he said that, said Israel has the right to defend itself and approved $730 million for this precise reason, to bomb Palestinians. How can he also be for a ceasefire? It's just like running PR narrative yet again for Joe Biden administration. This is, so once they introduce this, right, Nancy Pelosi has to refer to this type of bill to the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and then they have the jurisdiction over the arms sales. A few of these people, of these House Foreign Affairs Committee members, have already said that they don't support the sale. So among them are, of course, Joaquin Castro, Ilhan Omar, who have opposed it, and they are kind of relying on that. But I mean, this is likely not going to happen. It's got to get past the 51 members of this committee, which is unlikely because it includes a large number of pro-Israel legislators on both the Democrat and Republican side. And it can only be considered for 15 days after Congress is notified of a planned sale. Because Congress was informed of the sale on May 5th, here we go, the House has only until May 20th to consider it. What's the date? Guys, what's the date?
Tomorrow.
Oh, that's right. Tomorrow. Okay.
This is fucking virtue signaling.
This is like,
this
oh,
is
look,
bunch
the
of
squad.
bullshit. This
Let's
is the
praise
provide
them.
cover for the fucking squad that doesn't do shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's dead
just
on arrival,
lip
guys.
service.
It's dead on arrival. But guess what? Guess what the progressive indie media is all doing? Oh my God, AOC and the squad, look how they're trying. We need 100 more of them. We need them, blah, blah, blah. Guys, they have till tomorrow. This is dead on arrival. It's happening
it's
already.
Only a resolution too, so it's not even fucking
It's not a
binding.
legally binding document.
Yes.
The squad was able to push for impeachment multiple times when it came to Donald Trump.
Yeah, Rashida.
What the hell, dude? Where is like the same force? Like, this is like people dying. Oh, by the way, also, guess who was actually fighting for a defunding of Israel? Councilwoman Shama Sawant is the one that is pushing legislation to defund Israel. Why do we have to rely on Councilwoman Shama Sawant? She's a city councilwoman. Why aren't you doing what she's doing? That is where we have to go, because regardless of your resolutions, guys, anything we live in an empire that is basically uses Israel as its other gigantic military base in the Middle East. And you like, it's any electoralism can't just stand alone. It's got to be pushed by direct action, obviously. But if you're going to push for something, don't push for non-binding resolutions. Push for defund Israel, because that's right now we're funding Israel and we're not even funding ourselves. You're not getting anything. You're funding genocide. That has to end. I don't understand why it's so like crazy to say that. It's not a radical idea. We shouldn't be paying another country that's not even a country, it's an occupation, to exist. To exist and torture and expand its empire on other people through genocide. Like, we shouldn't be doing that. Americans should be appalled that the interference of the Israeli government on your affairs. You were so appalled with Russia supposedly interfering in your elections, which was disproven. But when it comes to Israel, we're just going to allow them to do whatever they want.
Yeah. Fam, I just got to say, too, I want to take a little, I'm not taking a jab, but I'm pointing the finger, too, at all those conservative people, those Trump people who always say, well, we got to stop giving money to all these other countries. This is ridiculous. We give all this money out. But when we give money to Israel, well, it's okay to give it to them because Trump said it was okay. Like, no, bullshit. You're against the funding, giving out all this money to all these other countries. Israel should be on that list, too, as well. So you can't separate the two. You're just being hypocritical.
Yeah, it's absolute.
Nice.
It's absolute
Being
hypocrisy.
hypocritical.
It's absolute hypocrisy. And yeah, like basically the same thing I just said. Like, stop making excuses for the squad. People keep saying, well, they don't have a majority. We need 100 more of them.
Oh my God.
But they immediately push legislation to impeach Trump. What's more important than defunding the Pentagon? That's taking your money to kill people. I mean, that's supposedly, right? Like they're taking your tax dollars to kill people. Now people say, well, that's not true, blah, blah, blah. But that's what they say. They say, we don't have money for this. We don't have money for this, but we'll approve millions and millions of dollars.
What does Jackson Hinkle say?
So, just so you guys know, the Justice Democrats elected to Congress in 2020 accepted $108,026 in pro-Israel campaign contributions. There is the list. Okay.
Jayapal's on that list.
Marie Newman, over 63,000, over 22,000.
Rokana,
over 12,000. Jayapal, over 5,000. Raul, I don't know who that is. And over 3,000 for Bauman. Like, now,
welcome to the table. Welcome
I'd
to the
have
team,
to look
Bauman.
into the specifics of how much, like, what do you mean by pro-Israel? I know the vast majority of Democrats take money from, because it's such a vast,
they're darlings of AIPAC.
But also
they're darlings of AIPAC.
But it's just so big. Like, it's just, Israel has such a big hold in our government. People don't even understand just how
they
much
control it, especially our foreign policy. Fam, now this made me disgusted right here when I saw this and stuff. When you're sitting there and
these
you're
are
saying,
the real journalists, by the way.
When the Convo Couch was started, we started the Convo Couch because of these fucking jerk-offs. These are not journalists. These are stenographers. These are not journalists. They're there. They're the PR team for the propagandist fucking right-wing government that we have, left-wing government establishment bullshit, whatever you want to call it. This is them for the elites right here. Look at this. This makes me disgusted.
Quick.
How's it drive?
How does it feel?
Would you buy one of these?
I would.
How does it feel to be behind the wheel, sir?
It feels great. I tell you what, these electric vehicles. Now, I don't know if anybody has a stopwatch, but I think if we're going 0 to 60 in about 4.3. 4.4?
Right.
4 flat?
Well, we haven't released the president.
I should be quiet.
Mr. President, how fast were you going?
Okay, I'm just going to step on it. I'll come off at 80 miles an hour. You'll see what it is, okay? You ready?
Mr. President, can I ask you a quick question on Israel before you drive away?
No, you
since
can't.
It's so important?
Not unless you get in front of the car as I step on it. I'm only teasing. Okay, here we go. You ready?
See it, sir.
You ready?
All right, our best test driver ever.
I think that was
How funny is that? Our president.
He's so cute.
He's
Look
so
at him.
good.
Can I ask you a question about Israel? No, you can't, or I'll run you over. Oh, okay.
How dumb do you look when you're a
Like,
president who doesn't take public comments? You won't let it you have a controlled environment at all times,
if
right?
Trump did this,
Yes.
Imagine the outcry. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Imagine the outcry if Trump said, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna." Oh my God, Trump doesn't care about Palestinian lives. Look at what he's saying. Oh my God, Trump is so out of touch. That's what they would be saying.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you have a Joe Biden. The media just
Coddles
oh my God,
him.
they coddle him. They love him. They
oh my God,
God, Joe.
You're such a good driver.
That's the problem I have with having a president like Joe Biden, because then we have to work twice as hard, because now we have to do their job and also do our job, and it's 10,000 times bigger, because now it's not as obvious for you to hate the idiot in the White House. It's not as obvious because they defend him and they're powerful and they have money, endless money, endless resources that we don't have. And it's disgusting to me that these people are considered journalists. These people are not fucking journalists. They're propagandists. Look at them. They're cheerleaders for Joe Biden. If I was there, I would demand, hello, Mr. President, people are dying. Why are you not answering this question about what's going on in Palestine? Why are you funding them if this is like people are getting murdered? The international outcry, the UN, they're calling for a ceasefire. When are you going to also call for a ceasefire?
Yeah, why is the UN blocked 3 times the ceasefire? Why is your administration blocking
3 times
the ceasefire when Palestinians are getting slaughtered? And say what you will about Donald Trump, right? And this is once again the controlled environment. Look who they have around him. They're laughing. How's it feel driving the car? How fast did you go? Stupid ass fucking questions trying to humanize our fucking elitist president. Donald Trump would walk to a crowd of reporters knowing that there was a lot of enemies there. He would argue with them, fake news, but he would take questions from anybody who would throw them at him. Did he answer a lot of them right? No, but at least he had the balls to do it. These people are just a controlled environment, and when somebody does ask a question, no, I'm not going to answer unless you put yourself in front of the car.
It's polite genocide versus like an outright, this is what we do. The politeness adds another layer of psychopathy to it. Yeah. Oh, Joe Biden can speak well. Well, what do you think? Do you give a shit if Palestinians? Yeah. Do Palestinians care that he can speak well? No, they don't care. They get bombs dropped on them just the same. And when speaking to Eva, she basically told me like nothing really changes. I mean, essentially, it doesn't really change. But Biden is worse because Biden has more blood on his hands thus far with what he's doing. By the way,
this is something I would have asked Joe Biden. Is what I'm pointing to right here and stuff like that. Read this here, fam, because this is something that's disgusting because they're using weapons that are banned, that are illegal on civilians.
So the Washington Post narrative management, right, it's to say that Israeli strikes are on Hamas tunnels when they've actually struck residential homes, schools, hospitals, and roads to hospitals. Remember, if journalism doesn't challenge the abuse from those in power, it is not journalism but propaganda. So this is from the Washington Post. Israel says it will step up strikes on Hamas tunnels despite ceasefire calls as clashes erupt in the West Bank. Hamas tunnels supposedly are underneath these houses. That's what they say. So the truth is the Palestinian Ministry of Health said that at least 42 people in Gaza City were killed in Israeli attacks even on Sunday that leveled buildings and targeted roads leading to a hospital, preventing ambulances from reaching the wounded. Medical doctors were among the dead, according to the health ministry, which called on the international community to protect the already fragile health system in the Gaza Strip. They already have fragile health system because they don't have access to all the medical technology that they should have access to. See, this is where my Grey's Anatomy stuff comes in handy. No, but it's true. Like they can't fight. Like you're a doctor and you're trying to help people right? While you have to deal with blackouts, while you have to deal with rockets, but like not having the supplies you need, not having the latest top surgical equipment that can make a difference between life or death that you need. Like that is a fact. On top of that, of what's happening. And they're gaslighting. They're lying to the American public saying, oh, these are the Hamas tunnels. What? They have zero proof. Netanyahu's been asked multiple times to provide proof that Hamas was in the building of the AP and Al Jazeera that they knocked down, that Hamas is anywhere. It's like the Hamas is their version of the Russians. They're everywhere. They're underneath the bed. But they're targeting residential areas. And it's disgusting.
This is also what you're talking about. Yeah. Fam, read this here because this is just terrible. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, look at the mindset of this situation, what's going on in Gaza.
So a father in Gaza said, I did the strangest thing today. I exchanged my children with my brothers. I took 2 of his children and gave him 2 of mine. So if I get bombed, one of mine will survive. And if he gets bombed, one of his will live on.
Think of the fucking mentality that you have to do that. Like to think about that. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. That is what we are funding. That is what we are propping up. That is what we are supporting. That is the blood we have on our hands. When a father has to go to his brother and say, hey, listen, let's swap out a couple kids so in case we all get bombed, one of our children will survive and vice versa. To even have that thought process come into play, ladies and gentlemen. What else we got?
This one, the main office
Qazi
of
Ayaz?
Qatar Hilal Amar.
Yeah.
a large organization carrying out relief activities in Gaza. So this is the Office of Relief Activities for Gaza, has also been targeted in Israeli bombardment. The offices of Hilal Ahmar are also safe during the war, but there is no law for Israel. So during a time of war, these are supposed to be like you don't target these zones.
Yeah.
They're not safe according
for
to
aid.
Israel.
But that's what they do, fam.
Yeah.
They deter people from going in there to help. That's why they're doing it. They're bombing roads to hospitals. They're bombing volunteer services like this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they're making a determined for anybody to come in and try to help out.
It's not by accident.
No.
No.
Oh, it's by
all
design.
targeted. It's all targeted.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not- it's all targeted.
Yeah,
Oh,
and but
yeah.
they
You
say
read
that Hamas
earlier.
is there.
You read
Hamas
that earlier that Bowen makes those targeted
It's
bombs.
It's all by design. They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing.
They know
But
what
they
they're
use the thing of Hamas. So when you as a congressperson or when you as anybody that has influence in media, you say, oh, Hamas must be condemned, you are allowing this to happen because then they can use that excuse to say you're manufacturing consent. Oh, by the way, yes, Hamas is a terrorist organization that needs to be blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and the fact is that I don't give a shit if the Hamas is responsible. Does that give you the right to bomb other civilians
They
when you
have
say
the
you're
right
going after Hamas?
to defend themselves.
Oh, okay. Fam, what do we got here? Because this is really sad. It says, where is my foot, my child?
Where is your foot, my child? The
Yeah.
occupation took it away with its aircraft missiles, accompanied by all the family members. They left me alone and without a mother, without a father, without brothers and sisters, and without a foot. Hashtag Gaza under attack. So again, when you think about the kids, you're saying, okay, 42 children are dead. That doesn't count the children or the people that have injuries, like losing your leg. Like, I mean, to anybody, I don't know about you, but to me, that would be devastating. That would change your entire life. It changes, especially in a country where you don't even have access to any type of health care at all. And so what?
Not even have fresh water.
That cuts your life short. Like, it's just all these things when you don't think about, the thousands injured. What are those injuries and what the significance of that is? From TRT World News, or World Now, Israel continues its relentless and brutal aggression on Palestinian civilians in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. Follow the thread for our latest Palestinian-related coverage. And so they've been doing a lot of coverage. Here's just some pictures on that. The military the Israeli military released missiles on civilians for the 9th consecutive day. That was the other day. They continue, this has been nonstop. You can continue watching the thread, but I just wanted to point out, this is what they're digging people out of rubble.
Yeah.
They're, it's bad, guys. It's bad. And when you're a journalist covering that over there, your life is in danger. I mean, talking to Eva, I know bullets came within inches of her during the time she was there. And that's the thing, that's real journalism, actually going there and covering the things, or at the very least showing what's there. A lot of these, the Israeli government, doesn't want that to be shown. So what they'll do is they'll deport the journalist. They'll kick him out. They don't want that to happen. I know when Gaza Fights for Freedom was happening, they couldn't even go into it. They couldn't even go inside Gaza. They had to have other Palestinian journalists. The thing is, when you have an international journalist, somebody that's an American or a European, it protects the Palestinians because they can't just shoot you like that. It would be an international outcry to shoot an American journalist. That's why, so many of them, some of them go to also, they talked about reading Eva's accounts, protecting them in certain ways by just her being there, which is disgusting. It's like, my life shouldn't be worth more than a Palestinian's life. That, that's not how it should be, but that's just
that's how it is.
How it is.
And this is from Molala, Free Palestine. She says, when it comes to Palestinian women's rights, children's rights, and human rights disappear.
There's just some pictures
just some
there.
more pictures, and you can see this stuff going on. These are women and children. I got the next one up right here. Okay, that was the same one. Let me see if you have it down here. I'll get over there 1 second.
This, Professor.
This one here, right?
Yeah. I wanted to read this because this is an important tweet.
That's the same tweet you have. All right. Is that in the next
one?
one?
No, it's right there. Just
okay. I think it might be here. You want me to read it from there, though, fam?
Yeah, just go ahead and read it.
It says Israel's universal health care system, here it is ranked 3rd in the world. Israel is the 6th healthiest country. Israel ranks 8th in life expectancy. The U.S. gives Israel $40 billion every decade.
Right.
Meanwhile, 68,000 Americans die every year because we don't have the universal health care system.
Okay, so this is what I want to point out about this. Our foreign policy is directly tied to our domestic policy, right? If it's true that we don't have money to feed the poor, for education, for housing, for healthcare here, yet Israel has higher life expectancy than we do. Israel has healthcare that we do not. Israel has all these things. Where are all my conservative friends who are so mad at the global South and the immigrant countries that these people, these illegals, are coming and taking our jobs and they're getting free healthcare? First of all, we don't get healthcare. They're definitely not getting free healthcare. One. Two, hello, look who's taking all the money. Why aren't you looking up at who's really controlling this here? Like this is this country that is taking all of your resources. And these are the corporations, the elites that go to the global South, exploit these people for slave wages, and then take your American-made union jobs and kaput. They're gone, and that's why you're fucked. It's that is the essence of why you're fucked. Why does Israel have a higher life expectancy than America?
Yeah.
What? Like
they have free education too.
The Palestinian life expectancy. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like it's night and day. It's disgusting, and we're still funding this. Like, guys, there's nothing less than the defunding of Israel, the boycotting of their products, the divestment of their products, and the sanctioning of their products. The sanctions we always put out, and we say, well, that's necessary. For once, try them on Israel.
And let's just point out the fact that Israelis have a longer life expectancy than Americans. They have better health care than Americans. And guess what? Israel gets their money from American taxpayer dollars.
Why aren't you outraged about that?
Why not? I love this last tweet over here, fam. This is so awesome.
The reason I put it in there, it's because we live in an empire, and we're
we play the video
run by warmongers. Yeah.
Let's play the video, and I'll read the tweet in my best slow news day voice.
When I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CI director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment. When I was a cadet.
Yeah.
Never forget, fam, that Mike Pompeo is a gigantic blob of satanic jello. That's all I'm going to say right now. I'm here with my better than co-host, Jonny Tsunami, and Fiorella.
Better than your co-host.
Better than your co-host. I just want to say that because I think it's disgusting that we sit there and we applaud fat pieces of crap like Mike Pompeo.
Guys, the CIA and the military-industrial complex and the national security apparatus literally are telling you, they're laughing. They're saying, we are trained to lie. They are trained to lie. They are trained to be criminals, but they are criminals that are allowed criminals. They're elite criminals. They get away with this. These are the people in charge of the country. These are the American experience is being an empire that can go all over the world and commit war crimes. This is why Julian Assange is in jail. I say it every single time. If Julian Assange didn't expose a lot of this, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be here doing this. Julian Assange was somebody that really brought a lot of this out in the public through WikiLeaks. And the fact is, this isn't just Israel-Palestine. This isn't just what we do to Palestinians. This is what we do to all over the world. And Israel's a large part of that. And we're done using the trope of anti-Semitism when we criticize the state of Israel. I'm not criticizing Jewish people's religion or ethnicity. I'm talking about the state of Israel that is committing war crimes. It's committing genocide on Palestinians and is trying to become basically the United States co-partner as an empire. And that has to end. And it's not going to end until you defund the Pentagon, until you defund Israel, until you basically, in order to defund Israel, you need to defund the Pentagon.
Yeah, we got to fix our elections, get rid of these assholes, get rid of the money going out there.
I don't know, fam. We do have to fix our elections, but I think it's going to require us getting in the streets for this.
Absolutely.
People understanding, you see how everything's connected from your Medicare for all, from workers' rights, from our lack of living health, like all these things that we have, another country has and is committing genocide on our behalf. All of this is interconnected. The imperialism, all of that is directly connected. I'm so glad people are getting out in the streets for wages, for Medicare for all. But we need to get out in the streets against imperialism and against censorship, against the stand against the press. Fuck censorship, right? Yep. People like MSNBC, CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, the AP. You see how even though they don't even respect them, Netanyahu bombed their buildings too. It doesn't matter, guys.
Johnny, what else you got real quick so we can get on out of here?
So I'm just trying to think of solutions, right? So we say a lot that, the taxpayer money is funding the Palestinian thing or, the crisis over there, the genocide that's happening right now.
Yeah.
And I just saw that this got actually passed the other day and, it got passed, right? American Rescue Plan, right? So I was looking at what's in there and there's like a lot of money for unemployment and stuff like that. So extends federal unemployment. And then I think, people who have children are getting some
extra money,
right? So then so there's some money there. They're also extending some SNAP benefits and stuff like that. I don't know, there's some money there. An idea could be to hold a type of like a protest, right? A general strike. We have the resources. We have more resources than before to do it now, is what I'm saying. People can be in solidarity if they are working with those, and you need people who are unemployed to be also in solidarity.
Right. This is what I mean by seize the moment.
And then there's also that Medicare for All march going on. We're trying to build coalitions with the marches that we're doing. So I'm just trying to think of any possible solutions there. I mean, I'm just saying that there's extra resources there.
You what you need is a list of demands and a continued.
Oh, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, you need a list of demands. Like they did in France, like the yellow vested in France. You need a list of demands and you need to also not stop. The protesting can't just be like, oh, we're going to march for Palestinians one Saturday and then the next week you get less people. It actually should be more and more and more.
Yeah.
And it builds upon itself. And the way you do that is through mutual aid. That's the difficult part, honestly, because there's a lot of corruption that could happen. There's a lot of people, taking that. We saw what happened with Riot Ribs and Portland and all that, all those things. Like, it's got to be very decentralized, but in a way that is very well communicated with others.
So you reminded me, Fee. Thank you. So basically, like, here's the bill, right? And I just want people to see like how the actual bill writes the language, right? Because I feel like the list of demands, fuck it, let's just write the bill for them, right?
Yeah.
Write the bill for them. And basically, this is what it says throughout the entire bill, right? So it'll be like Title I, Committee on Agriculture and Nutrition, and then it says appropriation. In addition to the amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the Secretary of Agriculture for fiscal year 2021 out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $4 billion to remain available until expended to carry out this section, use of funds. So there you go. So every single section has a line like that with billions and millions of dollars. And I'm like, okay, we can write that out pretty easily. I'm just telling you, like, when they write it out like this, and then the Federal Reserve goes and prints the money.
Yep.
Just goes.
Yep.
$4 billion. Okay.
Yep.
This is the same as a check, basically.
Yeah.
When this legislation gets passed.
Absolutely.
This is a check right there. So it's $4 billion in money right there.
And that department, who knows what's going on in the agricultural department? There's gonna be so much.
It hits the secretary.
It
hits all these other departments. You gotta look at it. It's crazy. Because that's how it works. Look, here's another one. USDA assistance in socially disadvantaged farmers, okay. In addition to the amounts otherwise for fiscal year out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, that's $1.01 billion right there to remain available until expended. I'm just looking at, they also have the Defense Production Act in this thing that they used. Defense Production Act that they use. I'm just trying to show you guys what's available there, and like, I don't know what, maybe we can do something here.
Yeah, I mean, you can write the legislation. You can put the demands there on the legislation. In order for it to pass, though, there's got to be a push from the outside, because they're not just going to do it out of the kindness of their heart. They're just not.
That's the question that comes into place, though, is like we usually stay in our own echo chambers and we do our own thing. So what we want might be different than other people in this country, and they have kept us apart, not talking to one another to see what we can come to on a conclusion of things. Like we talk about Medicare for All. If 70% of the people really want Medicare for all, then why isn't it passed? Well, we know our Congress is corrupt, whatnot. They're not going to give us what we want. We obviously think elections are a lot of the thing. But if you go into depth, there are people who say, well, listen, I don't want these choices taken away from me. We need to sit down and come to a conclusion for what we want as a whole from this country and say this is what we need.
And you're right. And also the way to do that is to stop the economy. Because they depend on you, every single person that goes to work every single day. If you just stop working, they're fucked. They're not going to tell you that. But if millions of people across the country just stopped working, and of course you need to pay this and this and that, which is why there has to be mutual aid.
Exactly.
But if that were to happen, and you make them cry, and then you're protesting at their houses and you're saying we're not going to stop until you give us what we want, then that turns the tables on who has the power. There's millions of people, okay? And they're going to have to bomb you. They're going to have to do something, or they're going to have to do what you ask.
Well, what's the common denominator that we all can get in the streets? It's always got to be workers. We're all workers, right?
We're all workers, yeah.
The system we're set in, we're all workers. So that's where we can find common ground. That's why I think a general strike is something that should come really out of this whole movement. In fact, is that, okay, workers, whether they be conservative or liberal, or progressive, or Tea Party, they're workers, and they're all pissed off. Nobody's making enough money. 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That is something we can all agree and get in the streets with. But these are the conversations we got to continue to have with people who think differently than us, and that's why I continue to push the envelope and say, hey, this is the way I feel, this is the way you feel. Well, where do we feel the same on these issues? And that's the conversations we need to have. And that's the establishment, how evil and smart it is. It's kept us apart. It's kept the country very tribal. You can saw what Stephen Garlardass was saying. Enough is enough. You got to decide what side you're on.
Yeah.
Hello? Like, they're keeping us tribal so we won't get together in a room and figure out what's what.
So, I mean, you brought up a point there. It was like the general strike stuff. And like, I remember this thing that I saw on Instagram the other day, the myth of nonviolent resistance. You know, you say general strike. Many people seem to think that the process of political change through peaceful protest looks something like this. People peacefully protest, 2 question marks, 3 political change happens. That's what a lot of people think.
Yeah.
But in reality, it looks something closer to this. People peacefully protest in a way that the government is unable to ignore, right? You're blockading roads. You're surrounding politicians' houses who run the government,
you're shutting
right?
Shit down.
You're shutting down highways.
Yep.
Number 2, the peaceful protesters are unjustly beaten, tear gassed, and shot in a public setting by the government. 3, the general population witnesses the violence, becomes outrageous and sides with the protesters. 4, the government gives in to the people's demands on threat of mass revolt, which is what I think happened with the civil rights movement, right? Yeah. That's what was happening.
Oh, yeah.
So
But then they cut that short.
That's really interesting. So it's like when you protest, the threat, you have to be okay with the threat of being unjustly beaten, tear gassed, and shot in a public setting by the government.
Well, they vilify that. Right now, what happens is you have the culture war thing going on when, you know, it's one thing if it's an issue like Black Lives Matter. It's another thing if it's an issue on economics, because that's where you can get people involved. Like, obviously, that is also a part of economics, too. It works into it itself. But if we can highlight that plus a bunch of other things, right, the fact that the police is tied to our imperialism, then you can get more people involved. And then more people are going to be like, okay, if you keep doing this and the government attacks you, then the burden is on them. Then they're attacking you and they're evil. So more people are going to come on your side. But in order for that to happen, like I said, the protests have to be consistent. You can't just stop.
They have to be large
and economic in its focus. Economics have to be the focus because that's what everybody's focus is on, feeding their families, etc.
I think too, though, there was a lot of plants within these marches over the summer and stuff like that. Because when you saw buildings burning down, like in Wisconsin and stuff where you went, we obviously saw that as a kind of a setup, you know, because now it's going to manufacture consent for one side to stick up for the police, saying, can you protect people's properties? Can you protect small business owners' businesses and stuff like that? And that's why when you have these other situations coming in and you got protesters being violent or burning down stuff, first of all, we don't know if it's a real protest or if it's a CIA fucking plan. And we've said this before and stuff like that. But that's the things that can swing the tide when it comes to these protests. And that's why I believe the elitists, the predator class, they make sure that those things do happen so that we do remain tribal. That's what they're trying to do. Anything else, Johnny?
Oh, we could go on, but I mean, it's like there's a lot of thoughts there, but no, it's good.
Good discussion.
We you know what I'm saying, the whole thing is at the end of the day, this is where I said I was wrong and my partners were always right, is that regardless of what's going on in the streets, it's our right to protest. If you're a civil liberties guy, Pasta, you should be out there defending people's right to protest, and we should. And we also have to call out the things that Ford Fisher called out the other day. When it comes to the right, they're not going to highlight what really goes on at these particular protests. And that's taking away fair criticism to say, okay, we can have criticism of the mentality, but yet we're only showing the Fox News is just showing these guys breaking down windows and what's going on. So we're getting away. We're remaining tribal because they're keeping us tribal rather than having real discussions
because
to what's going on.
Because these people make money
out
off of the tribalism, just the same way the neoliberals do. Some of these neoconservatives also make money off of that.
Yeah. We had 100 people on Rokfin. We just dipped down to 98. Let's get a couple more back up there. Thank you so much. We love it when we break 100.
We had like 105.
We had 105. That is awesome. Here's Mona Love.
Mona.
1984. How you doing, Mona Love? Love you with that fam shirt. Cheers to some of my fave people. Thanks for everything you do.
We love you, Mona.
Pasta still waiting for some recipes.
Wow, pasta.
What does SMDH stand for?
Shake my damn head, fam. Come on, get with it, boomer.
We have a show coming out. It's called Yo Vegans. You'll hear about it.
He's got a show coming out.
Pasta Jardula, my friend Scotty Johnson. We're going out to restaurants. We're cooking in the house. We have this great sangria. We'll be on our first episode that Fam Can't Stop Drinking. It's the best sangria she have ever had, and it's amazing. So you will get recipes. You will get that food I put on Instagram. You'll see all that stuff. It will be out. Just hold still. It's coming sooner than you think. No offense, fam. I got the first shot of the not a vaccine. Hopefully I don't turn into a zombie. Love what you guys do.
Did you see the magnet thing?
Oh my gosh.
Dude, guys, watch the magnet thing.
Look up magnets and fire.
On TikTok. They put like a magnet on their arm that they got a shot from. Which did it say which shot it was?
I don't know. I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, yeah,
but
it
was the Pfizer one.
Jindo left a Super Ray. Thank you so much, Jindo. It is always appreciated on the couch. Jonny Bug, love that name. Great show. Your interview yesterday with Black Panther Reverend Annie Chambers was excellent. You guys got to go check this out. It was amazing. It was a life-changing interview. Thank you, by the way. Joe Biden is a war criminal, piece of shit, along with those sycophantic fake journalists. That's right. They're just there for PR. Thank you, Jonny Bug, for that tip. It is always appreciated on the couch from Eddie Villegas. Thank you so much for the Super Ray. And Silla Metter, Go Pasta, and Isabel, you guys rock. Silla, don't forget about Johnny Sue. He rocks too as well. We're all rocking it on the couch. We want to thank you for joining in today. We know we had a long show. A lot of great information. I love these shows. I went to sleep last night. Couldn't wait to wake up today and talk about the things we talk about, fam. It is a pleasure. It is a privilege. This is the real privilege that we get to do what we do. And we thank all of you guys who put in these Rokfin today, these rays, for making it possible. So we'll see what the next quest is, the next place we got to go. We'll always be out there on the ground. Check out Working Class Solidarity. Johnny did some awesome work.
Yeah.
Some great music.
I love the shots, the music.
And Reverend Annie Chambers.
Oh, Reverend Annie. She's amazing.
That's their plan, to keep us divided.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
I listen to Reverend Annie Chambers. That's right. It. Black Panther.
Reverend Annie Chambers says, screw everybody who's telling you not to talk to anybody, because if you don't talk to anybody, nobody will learn anything. We will always be divided. We will always be tribal. Listen to Reverend Annie Chambers. We love you guys.
She's got wisdom.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Johnny? No. So for Pasta Jardula,
myself,
Fiorella Isabel, and
Johnny Sue.
On those ones and twos.
You're so ridiculous.
I know.
Come on.
Look for the Eva Bartlett interview, and I also interviewed Dan Nauman to talk about socialism.
Free Palestine.
See, Free Palestine.